Chapter 4, Day 3. We are going to do some reviewing here and some extra practice on what we have covered so far, which would be determining whether a relation is a function, if it's discrete or continuous, stating the domain and range, and working on independent and dependent variables. So, let's take a look at this question. Mr. Harder finished these questions really quickly. He claims he got them all correct. His answers are below. Did he really get 100%? Figure out how many he really got correct. So take a look at these. You're the teacher. You correct them. You see if he got 100%. Pause the video. See what you think. Figure out how many he got correct. Then start the video and see if you were right. So when we take a look at this, the first question is not a function because those x values of -3 are repeated. Letter B is a function, no repeats there. C, no repeats there. And neither with D. Remember, we're looking for the x values to be repeated. When we get down to the set of ordered pairs, we can see in question E that no, that is not in fact a function because the x value of 3 repeats. And in letter F, Mr. Harder said, no, it's not a function, but it is, because if you take a look at those x values, they are 0, 1, 2, 3, and 5. They do not repeat, so it is a function. The y values do repeat, but that's okay. We are only concerned about if the x values repeat. Yesterday, we did some of these questions, but let's see if you can do these a second time. So see if you can fill in, or we'll fill this one in together. So the blank of a function is the independent variable. That would be the input. So what you put in is the independent variable. So just look at the I in independent and the input right here. And those are going to be what values, x or y? Those are going to be your x values. Your dependent variable is the output. That's what comes out. Because the output depends on what you put in. And that the output is our y values. So the value of the dependent variable depends on the value of the independent variable. So, for example, a Little Caesars pizza costs $5 each. The total cost depends on the number of pizzas you buy. So the cost, which is your output, depends on the number of pizzas you buy. So again, cost depends on. So write down which is the independent and which variable is the dependent variable. Pause the video and then start it back up to see if you got it correct. Since the cost depends on the number of pizzas, cost is our dependent variable. And our independent variable is the number of pizzas. And I know we did this one yesterday, but sometimes it's worth doing them a second time to make sure you really understand what's going on. Here's another one. You fill in the blank. Aaron babysits and makes $8 per hour. The blank depends on blank. Fill that statement in and then see if you can identify the independent variable and the dependent variable. Pause the video, write it down, and then start it again. So you should have filled in something like the amount of money that Aaron earns, or how much money Aaron makes, or money depends on the number of hours she babysits. So the dependent variable is the amount of money that she makes. And the independent variable is the number of hours, or just hours. Okay, here's a new one you haven't done before. You have a job mowing lawns. If you were to graph the relationship between how much money you earn and the number of lawns you mow, what is the independent variable and what is the dependent variable? And then tell me if you think this is discrete or continuous. So you may want to start out by writing blank depends on blank. So pause the video and see if you can fill this in. So what you should have gotten is the money that you earn, or your M, depends on the number of lawns you mow. And that's always a really great place to start. So now just take a look at money depends on, highlight that. So which is our dependent variable? The money earned. And then what is the independent variable? The number of lawns mowed. So, do you think this is a discrete or a continuous function? Is it something that you can count or something that you can measure? If you were going to graph this and graph your earnings, okay, here is your graph. If you were going to graph this, you would have your independent variable is the number of lawns mowed. Remember, that's your X's. And your dependent variable is money. So you would have 0 lawns is 0 money. 1 lawn is a certain amount of money. 2 lawns is a certain amount of money, etc. But you can count the number of lawns. But let me ask you this. Can you mow 1.5 lawns and make a different amount of money? Now, sometimes that's up for interpretation. Can you mow 1.1 lawns? Can you stop halfway through and then you're still going to get paid part of it? I doubt it. Okay? So that means that since you cannot connect these points right here, because that would mean you could mow part of a lawn and get a different amount of money, that's not true. Okay? We can't connect that in between. So this is going to be a discrete function. So this would be discrete because we can count it. It's countable. And we would have to plot individual points because we can't mow 1.11 lawns. All right, so you tried these yesterday. See if you can try a couple of these and then check back to yesterday's notes or your notes and see if you got them right again. Or you can watch the video and it will explain these, but these are tougher things, this independent, dependent, so I want to give you some extra practice. Last thing I want to do here is I want to have you try this review/quiz warm-up. Okay, we're not going to be using it for a quiz this week because of all the stuff that is going on, but see if you can figure out for each of these questions, number 1 and 2, whether it's a function or a relation, discrete or continuous, and what the domain and range is. And then see if you can figure out the independent and dependent variable. Pause the video, do this sort of overall review, start the video, and then listen to the explanations. So, question number 1. If you notice that we do have 2 is repeated. We have x's repeated, so it's not a function, it is a relation. Okay, discrete or continuous. This function is individual points. I can count them, there are 4 of them. So that is discrete when you can count it. Domain. The domain is all of the x values. You have an x value of 2, 5, and 8. You have a second 2 there, but it's just a set of all possible x's. So this would be 2, 5, and 8. Your range is the y values, the set of all y values you have. Your y values, you have 3, 4, 5, and 7. And again, we usually put those in order from smallest to largest. So we have 3, 4, 5, 7. Let's look at number 2. Is this a function or not? If it's not a function, we call it a relation. Well, if we look at this, it passes the vertical line test. So this is a function because it passes the vertical line test. Is it discrete or continuous? Can you count the number of points on that graph? Well, here's a point, but there's an infinite number of points on this line. So we can't count it, and when our points are all connected, it's called continuous. Our domain is all the x's. Here's where it gets tricky on a graph. You have an x value right here That ordered pair, the x value is 0. This ordered pair right here, that x value is 1. This ordered pair, that x value is 2. And this ordered pair, that x value is 3. Okay? But you also have an x value here on this graph at 1.5 and 1.1 and 1.01, etc. So your x values are in between 0 and 3. Notice both ends were solid, so we're going to have the x values are less than or equal to 3, and they're greater than or equal to 0. So that's where our x values go. They go from here on the number line to here on the number line. And that is all of my x values here, between that range. Now let's look at the y values. The y values, you have a y value right here. Your y value is 1. You don't have any y values that are below 1. You have a y value at 2. This ordered pair, the y value is at 3. And up here, this ordered pair, the y value is at 4. So your y values never go beyond 4. So again, your y values are all the numbers that are less than or equal to 4, but that are greater than or equal to 1. All right, last question. A math tutor charges $45 per hour. So we want to identify the independent and dependent variable. So the math tutor charges per hour. So the money that is earned by the tutor depends on the number of hours that they tutor. So again, money earned is your dependent variable. So the dependent variable is the money earned, and the independent variable is the number of hours tutored. Okay, so hopefully this went well for you, and you are starting to understand this, but always feel free to read the textbook sections in Chapter 4. You can use your online textbook to do that, or your paper copy, and then go to the homework. Your original packet that I gave you of notes is slightly different. Make sure you realize that we do have the worksheet, but then there's also an assignment, if you notice, on Schoology right here. So don't forget to do this domain and range practice matching, and you do have 10 attempts to try to get them all correct. But this is the end of our day 3 video.